G'day, Matt Fradd here. Welcome to the Victory Channel. I got an email recently from somebody who wants to know how to speak to their boyfriend about his pornography consumption, whether he looks at pornography, how much he looks at pornography, his history with pornography and that sort of thing. And I think that's a really good question to be asking. I think if two people are seriously considering marriage, or even remotely considering marriage, that this is a conversation that should come up. Now, I want to caution, the ladies to recognize that most men have seen pornography and have willingly seen pornography, and that this need not cause you to think poorly of them immediately. Why? Because most of us were exposed to porn before we had any serious sexual formation. I was 8 years old, right? This is before the time of the internet. I stumbled across porn. I was completely taken by it, very captivated by it. I loved what I was seeing. And I just started stealing pornography, and then the internet came in and I was watching it regularly. All right. Now, don't hear me saying it's normal, therefore, for guys to watch porn. I think it's an evil thing for guys to watch porn. And I think if a guy is watching porn with any regularity, he shouldn't be in a dating relationship. But I would caution a woman out there to think that, okay, if my boyfriend has ever seen pornography in the past, therefore he's not fit for marriage. That's just not the case. Especially when we walk around with these things in our pocket and things pop up, all the time. So what should you do as a woman if you want to learn if your boyfriend's looking at pornography and how serious it is? Here's what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't spring the topic on him. And by the way, you can apply this if you're a fella and you're dating a girl. You can apply this to her as well. I'm just speaking as a male and I'm responding to a girl here who asked the question. I wouldn't spring it on him. I mean, suppose you're out having a cup of coffee and you're exiting the cafe and you say, by the way, do you look at pornography? Is this something that you view? I don't know. I'm just trying to give an example. You ask somebody in the spur of the moment, are they doing this thing that they probably feel really ashamed about? Why shouldn't you ask them like that? Because, they'll probably lie. You and I both know what it's like to be put on the spot and asked something that makes us feel very uncomfortable, where we haven't kind of premeditated that we'll lie. It's just this defense mechanism where we're like, no. Okay. And once the person does, I'm not saying they're going to lie, but I think it's more likely that they will. And once the person does lie, if they do, you're now expecting them to A, admit that they lied to you, and B, tell you that they might view pornography. And these are just big hurdles for someone to overcome. So you want to make it easier for them. Because I do think that it's a matter of, it would be false advertising, put it that way, to not tell the girlfriend that you're considering marrying that you're struggling with pornography or vice versa. So I think that the woman has a right to know, right? But how might you as the girlfriend ask him? Well, I would just give him some preparation. I would say something like, hey, I'm so glad that we're together. I'm so glad that things are getting serious with us. I wanted to ask some questions and maybe share a little bit about our history, maybe our sexual history, maybe whether pornography has been an issue. I don't want to talk about it now, but I'd love us to be able to talk about it tomorrow. And you might not want to get that explicit. You might just want to say, I want to talk to you about some things. I know we're getting serious and I'm so glad about that, but I want to talk about some things that may have taken place in our past that we want to be honest with each other about. Okay. See, in doing that, the fella thinks to himself, all right, we're going to have a conversation, and he probably knows what's coming, and he's got a whole night to sort of prepare, and he's far less likely to lie because he's not being put on the spot. All right. And, I think how you phrase it the next day is going to help as well. If you just come right out and say, do you look at pornography? That's one thing. But if you say, look, I just know that we live in a sexualized culture where, frankly, we've been lied to about what will make us happy and what's good for us. And you might say, I know I've made mistakes. you know? And I'm not expecting you to be perfect as well, but I do expect you to be honest with me. And so I want to ask you, and you don't have to answer me right away, but how often do you look at pornography? I like that question. I mean, talk about a cynical question. What I mean is, don't say, have you ever seen pornography in your life? Just say, how often do you view pornography? Now, he might say, okay, well, I used to look at it a lot. I don't look at it nearly as much as I used to. It's about once a week, or he might say it's once a month, or he might say it's once every 3 or 6 months, or I haven't looked at it in 2 years, right? So I think that's a helpful way to go about it, you know? Here's the next piece of advice I'd give you as a female, and if you're asking your boyfriend about this, don't ask him to give you details about what he has viewed, where he has viewed it, or any of those, I would say, for the most part, unnecessary questions. I think it's sufficient for someone to say, I looked at pornography last night, or I suppose the last time I viewed it was about a month and a half ago, you know. And before that, like, was that a one-off? I think that's a fair question. Was that a one-off thing, or were you like looking at it every day? And they might say, no, it was a one-off thing. Maybe before that it was 2 weeks, maybe before that was 5 months, you know. Those sort of general questions are helpful, but asking very specific things like, well, what exactly were you looking at? And how long and where were you when you watched it? And tell me about that. I mean, those questions I do think are unnecessary. I think they cause shame to the person you're asking about. I mean, there might be other factors that I'm not considering where maybe you do want to ask some more specific questions. But I would say for the most part, those questions are unnecessary, you know. That just to say that is enough. What do you think? If you're a woman who's dating someone and maybe you've had this experience, let us know below. If you're a fella and you've had to respond to these questions, or if you've taken the courage to be honest with your girlfriend about these sorts of things, what do you think? What I often find is men are afraid to tell their girlfriends or their wives that they struggle with pornography, or that they look at it, or they have looked at it, or they did look at it. But if you say to that boyfriend or that husband, okay, but if your wife looked at it, would you want her to keep that a secret? And the man will most likely say, of course not. It's the same thing. You know, in my own marriage, I've found that what was more detrimental to our relationship wasn't the fact that I fell to pornography. It was those times that I either lied to her or just sort of obscured the truth. Maybe I didn't flat out lie, but I obscured the truth. I think that's a real detrimental thing in marriage, and we don't want to do that. Let me know your thoughts below. If you disagree with me, I'm okay with you disagreeing with me. One of the things that's been really cool here on the Victory channel is to see people offer each other advice. So feel free to do that below. God bless you.